on House Bill 386. Thank you.
You've heard the unanimous consent and the plea. Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the roll call of 67 ayes, 0 nay, and 2 absent excused, used for the suspension of rules on House Bill 385 will now be used for the suspension of rules on House Bill 386, making possible the immediate consideration of House Bill 386. The gentleman from District 23.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 386.
Hearing no objection, the gentleman has the floor to open the debate.
This is a corrective bill to ensure accurate language surrounding how classroom technology funds, fixing the language in House Bill 355. It's a great bill.
Thank you. Is there further debate?
Just a Rule 80 declaration.
Your declaration on Rule 80 will be noted in the journal. Is there other debate? Hearing none, then the debate is closed. The question before us is, shall House Bill number 386 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. The vote count shows 68 in favor with 1 absent. House Bill number 386 has passed the House and will be transmitted to the Senate. Gentleman from 14.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the roll call used for suspension of rules on House Bill 385 now be used for the suspension of rules on House Bill 387, making possible the immediate consideration of House Bill 387.
You've heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, then the roll call of 67 ayes, 0 nay, and 2 absent and excused, used for the suspension rules on House Bill 385 will now be used for the suspension of rules on House Bill 387, making possible immediate consideration of House Bill 387. Good gentleman from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All out of haikus, I have also lost my mind. Oh my, it is May.
Shall we skip reading? Only members can decide. Looks like we agree. Gentleman has the floor to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 387 is the fiscal year 2022 original appropriation bill for college and universities. Appropriates a total of $629,853,900. One thing I can assure every member, I think, on this floor is partially unhappy with this appropriation, but it is the appropriation that we need to pass to support our college and universities throughout the state of Idaho and show support for our Idahoans that are enrolled in those institutions to help advance their lives and create a better Idaho for our future. I'm happy to answer questions about individual line items or spending, but I would encourage your green light. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Gentleman from 34.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to debate against the bill. House Bill 387 is a reprisal of an earlier appropriation bill for colleges and universities. The prior bill had I shouldn't talk about the prior bill. I should talk about this one. This one has a $2.5 million adjustment downward from the governor's recommendation where we were originally going to stand on this bill. The problem I have with it is that we passed House Bill 377, which is now law. It's not pending legislation, so I think I can talk about law in Idaho. The law from House Bill 377 was the one about dignity and non-discrimination in public education. We decided that no public funding should go towards promoting critical race theory or advocating for social justice indoctrination in our schools. That's what the law says. That's law in Idaho now. When this budget is presented here and it adjusts it by $2.5 million, but we acknowledge that there's far more than $2.5 million in our higher education system being dedicated towards teaching, well, not teaching, promoting and advocating for critical race theory and social justice promotion in our universities. We would now be violating the very law that we passed just a few days ago in here, that we would be appropriating money to fund exactly what we said public money could not be used for. If you think that any more than $2.5 million is being used in our universities to promote critical race theory, you must vote against this budget. I would contend that more is being spent. A gender equity center at Boise State University, multicultural student services center at Boise State University, cultural and ethnic diversity, Boise State University. Part of our University Foundations course employs critical race theory, doesn't just teach about it, employs it by getting students to do something that goes against their own beliefs and values. University of Idaho Office of Multicultural Affairs, a women's center, LGBTQA office, equity and diversity office. Idaho State University Diversity Resource Center, Janet C. Anderson Gender Center, Research Diversity Outreach, diversity programs. We are spending thousands, millions of dollars on critical race theory and social justice promotion in our universities. We just passed a law that said we would not do that. We should not be appropriating money for that. We've identified many situations at our universities where students are made to feel, based on the color of their skin or whatever situation, social situation they're in, that they should feel bad because they're part of an oppressive majority or feel bad because they're part of an aggrieved minority. That's what critical race theory teaches. That's what we should not promote or advocate for in our universities with public funds. House Bill 377 passed. It's now law. We should back up what we said with that by sending this budget back, adjusting it downward by another $18 million so that our actions here reflect our actions of last week. Thank you.
Is there further debate? The lady from Guam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be voting no on this bill like I did the last time because we've got the same thing basically returned to us when we requested, and what I would have liked to seen is this budget turned into 4 different budgets. So we could dig deeper into some of these issues that are happening in our college. When we have such a huge budget, there's no way to pick out the problems, and it's just an all or nothing kind of bill. But when you start really looking through the details of these college budgets, all these centers and community resources that they've put on campus, they are doing what the gentleman in District 34 just said. They have this critical race theory part of their culture at the colleges. And so I had a bunch of notes from last time, and I didn't realize we were going to be on this bill today. And I'm not going to get into it all, but you know, a lot of this training in these diversity centers, they're offices, and then they do the training right on site. They also sponsor events for these students, and I've got pages and pages of research on this and the problems in our school, and the only way we're going to be able to address this is on a school-by-school basis. Because I don't want to blame University of Idaho for something Boise State's doing. And I'm requesting that we vote no on this, return it, and turn it into 4 budgets, and then we can look at each budget separately. And I think we have the time to do this, especially if we're going to be here through next week, as we've heard. I think we have the time to do this, to send it back and just turn it into 4 separate bills so we can look at each program.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. We'll go gentleman from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make sure everyone had a chance to get everything they needed to off their chest. I know, Mr. Speaker, that technically
When we debate, we're not just getting things off our chest. He's attributing motives to.
Thank.
Please continue, gentleman from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the good gentleman from 34 is correct. Technically, we are debating House Bill 387. Technically, we are debating whether to appropriate some money to our four-year institutions. Technically, we are debating whether we should further cut, or to use the terms of a microeconomist, make a downward adjustment to the budget, a divestment in our own public institutions. That's what we're debating. What I feel, however, that we're really debating is the question of how scared should we be of social justice and critical race theory. Now, as a black man and someone who is deeply familiar with these concepts and ideas at both a practical level and an academic level, I have been saddened by this conversation. I think it has been disappointing, and I think it's been problematic. Now, those words I just used might seem a little bit bombastic, and I'm not prone to bombast, so let me explain myself. I am a proud Boise State graduate. I'm just going to lay my bias out there for everyone to hear. I went there on the GI Bill. That place provided opportunities I had never seen before in my life. It changed my life. And then, I was the chief academic, excuse me, Mr. Speaker. And then, I was the chief academic officer for the State Board of Education. So I have tremendous bias towards all of our public post-secondary institutions who do tremendous work, not just teaching kids, who, by the way, are adults. I'm talking about the research that they do for the cattlemen and the wheat commission, the interns that they spill out year after year for all the small businesses in Idaho. I'm talking about the total economic and social impact on our state. And while they are not perfect institutions, I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all agree we are not a perfect institution. They do absolutely essential work. And I fear, based on my interpretation of the months-long discussion, the thousands of emails, the millions of social media posts, that our appreciation for our public post-secondary institutions is dangerously low. Now, before talking about the claims that I've heard over the last few months as to why we should further divest from our public institutions, I would like to define, rather than describe, social justice and critical race theory. Social justice, friends, is merely the social equivalent of legal justice. That's it. And legal justice is the pursuit of fairness in the eyes of the law. So social justice is just the pursuit of fairness in the eyes of society. It's a process. It's one I believe in, and I pray that everybody here believes in it too. The good news is I don't think our conflict is about social justice. I think our conflict is about how we pursue fairness in the eyes of society. That's where ideas like critical race theory come in. So what is it? As I used to tell my undergraduate students, there are 4 things you need to know about critical race theory. Number 1, it is a theory for which there is no universally accepted idea or definition, even by its proponents. It's not a thing, it's not an object, it's an idea. Number 2, it tries to explain our social situation and to explain the present through a more inclusive and representative version of the past. If you can break it down to a single thing, number 3, this is it. Critical race theory and critical race theorists do believe this single thing, that America's social institutions, our legislatures, our courts, our schools, you name it, they do have, to varying extents, they are embedded